Welcome to Flourishing Unfiltered, the podcast for high achievers who seek a professional life that feels as good as it looks.
We talk about the unseen journey of struggles on the path to success that people rarely talk about.
I'm Kieran Smith, positive psychology and leadership coach and consultant.
And I'm Dr. Michael Neuhaus, positive psychology and self-leadership speaker and consultant.
Before we begin today, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we're recording. We pay our deepest respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
As we share our stories today, we honour the rich tradition of storytelling that has been passed down through generations.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Future of Flourishing, a futures thinking media, training and venture lab dedicated to bridging the gap between scientific knowledge and practical application in the field of human flourishing.
The Future of Flourishing is committed to creating a comprehensive ecosystem of communication and innovation platforms. Find out more about the Future of Flourishing at futureofflourishing.com.
If you enjoy our podcast, please leave us a review. It would mean the world to us. Hi everyone, thanks for tuning back in. Today we are joined by one of my favourite creatives on Instagram, someone who keeps my feed nice and lively and gives me something to think about in a lot of my coaching sessions, Janis Ozolins. Now Janis is a visual artist who shares easy to digest ideas on creative business and personal growth, reaching millions every month. He left his 9-to-5 behind in 2021 and has an Instagram community of almost 150,000. Based on the huge interest he receives from his followers, he now explains his ideas visually. He's made a course called Explain Ideas Visually, where he teaches exactly that. Janis occasionally takes on freelance projects and has worked with big names, including the likes of Bartlett and Julian Shapiro. Other than that, Janis procrastinates, doubts himself, struggles with perfectionism, yet he does what he loves for a living, and he believes you can do the same. His newsletter, the Ideas newsletter, through which he shares helpful tips free for every single week, has amassed over 11,000 subscribers to date. Janis is originally from Latvia, but lives in sunny Spain with his young family now. Janis, welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you very much for the kind words. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, we're stoked to have you here. And as I mentioned, I really love your work. I'm constantly resharing it. I'm taking your ideas and bringing them into my coaching conversations because I find it so easy to break down really complex topics with your visuals. And I know that so many of the summaries from my meetings that I pass on to my clients include your little visuals in there because it's been a great topic of conversation. And I'm sure this is the same for many people that enjoy your work too. What we would really love to dive into here is understanding a little bit behind what happened in 2021? What was the catalyst for you to leave the 9-to-5 and start this little venture that you're on, which is now amassed into quite a big venture. So we'd love to hear the story and the journey from 2021 to now.
Well, I think for 2021 to make sense, we need to step back like four years probably before that, because everything really kicked off in 2017 or end of 2016 or something like that, which was basically I was just working in a 9-to-5 corporate world, feeling a little bit stuck. So one of my friends kind of invited me, hey, do you want to go and study business psychology after work? And I was like, whatever. I feel a bit stuck, a bit of business, a bit of psychology. Sounds useful, whatever. Let's do it. And like after a couple of months, one of the lecturers there assigned us an assignment. Hey class, in 1 week, you need to come in front here and present a business idea. That was just some business idea lecture or whatever. And I remember at that time, I always have been this kind of entrepreneurial type of guy, but more like a entrepreneur, a lot of talk, but not that much of doing. And when I got that...
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, that's a entrepreneur. That's a thing. And I remember still, when I got that assignment, I kind of said to myself, Janis, let's do this for real, Don't say that you will create like the next Facebook and then, I don't have capital, I don't have this, I don't have that. Figure out something and present to that class in 1 week that you can start now, with your 9-to-5, with your obligations, with the budget you have, that is zero. So what you could do. And I remember when I started to research that was when I stumbled upon like, all this online business and all these like bloggers traveling the world and doing fun stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this looks amazing. I want a piece of that, And that was when my mind kind of got very curious about online business. And it doesn't really matter what I presented to that teacher the next day. I'm sure it was something that that I don't do anymore. But it led me to this personal growth and kind of trying to figure out this online business space. And I tried many different things, many various types of content creation. I tried even to partner with some developers to create some applications. None of that work, felt like an uphill battle. At the same time, it was fun. I did run a lot of experiments. I quit tons of things. And eventually, it led me to discovering this, explaining ideas visually. Firstly, I stumbled upon on that probably everybody here listens know James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. And sometimes in his blog posts, he adds little illustrations. And I'm like a very lazy reader, I didn't read much or whatever. I like to find the shortcuts and the easy way. And I was like, hey, like this guy is writing this long piece article, but I look at these couple of visuals and I really get the meat of the idea. And that was like, it first time hit me that hey, there is something to this type of communication, that you can actually communicate a lot with very little for lazy people like me. And that kind of kicked off all that journey. There was some other inspirations and there was a lot of like iteration and trying to figure this out. But yeah, on 2021, now we go there. I still remember I committed to, with my best friend, like 1 year before, we did like this accountability challenge where we did like some fitness exercises. Hey, I need to do like 50 push-ups every day and you need to do that. And if we don't, we send each other €1, just like for the sake of the challenge. And I remember at the end of 21, I said, I like this visual stuff. I want to go like hard on it. I need to post a visual every single day. If I don't, I will send you this €1. And that kicked off like the consistency, and the rest is history. So basically, like the rest is history. I started to post it like super consistently at the end of 21. And I remember it was like around 5-6 months later when I left the 9-to-5 job for whatever. I started to like gain some freelance opportunities or whatever. Some audience growth was there. It was quite stressful at work at that time. So we sat down with wife, and then calculated our finances. We understood, okay, we are good for like 2-3 years if I quit my job, even if I get like zero income. And that's when I decided to pull the plug. And yeah, the rest is history. And it's been good most of the time.
Wow, what a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. What an incredible journey. And to hear just, what was the catalyst, what was the starting point. But I love the accountability check too. I know that's something that's definitely worked well for me previously, particularly around fitness. But I didn't have the incentive of having a bit of, money exchanging if I didn't commit. So that's maybe something I might take on as we're about to engage in our summer again, or it'll be right in the midst of our summer. But yes, I think I might have to do the accountability check with a little bit of finances. So thanks for the tip very early on. I think.
It is such a good strategy because psychologically we're motivated more by the prospect of a loss than by the prospect of gaining something. So it's a clever little strategy that I've used in the past as well.
But you know what we changed a couple of years later? We flipped it. We are best friends. And then we said like, hey, send me your goals for the week. And if I will not accomplish my goals, you, my best friend, will send me money. So it's like now integrity is on the line, because I don't want my best friend to send me money because of my like inability to do things. This didn't last, but it was actually a very smart twist, because then like really the integrity is on the line. Because previously, €1 or whatever, send it, whatever. It doesn't matter that much. But this integrity was like a new thing.
Wow,
just
I love
putting
that,
it out
Janis.
there.
Yeah, and it makes so much sense. And I love the adaptability there. I love your whole story. You know, a picture says 1,000 words, doesn't it? And I think we can all relate. I'm certainly one of those lazy readers too. And I know that that's also why I too appreciate your artwork so much. What I would love to know, you mentioned earlier, you know, there were like a million uphill battles or something like that. And I know that some of your most recent graphics too sort of talk about that, you know, an optimist mindset and how they deal with mistakes and how they deal with setbacks and so forth. So can you tell us a little bit more about some of these struggles? What exactly did you struggle with? How did you cope with that? You know, and have you always been that optimist that knew it doesn't matter what comes my way, I'm just going to keep going? Talk us through that.
Yeah, I think I am more optimistic by nature. That's definitely that maybe I got from the parents. So thank you, parents. But some of the struggles, you know, it's you might not like the answer, you know, but it honestly didn't felt that much as a struggle because I was doing it kind of on the side, you know. I had my 9 to 5, you know, like the life was kind of secured, you know. I'm fine. I'm more stressed now, you know, when I'm fully relying on creative income. And you as a solopreneur know that some months are like this and some months you earn like less than your expenses and then you're like, oh, bad, you know, and then you start to burn through savings and there's all this uncertainty. And that actually creates a lot of stress. But back then when I was exploring, I was having an absolute blast because like every free time I had, you know, I stopped listening to music. I was listening to like audiobooks and just binging stuff like crazy because I found it so interesting. I ran these experiments. I allowed myself to like quit whenever it felt like hard or whatever, you know, which is maybe not the right advice, you know, but I was really in exploration phase and it was extremely fun even if I didn't get like results, you know, like revenue or audience growth. It didn't happen, but I was having a blast. And I think there is something to it, you know, to keep it intrinsically motivating for yourself and try to figure out, you know, where is that path, and eventually visuals hit. And yeah, it's like still to this day, you know, 80% of the work I do is really fun and playful and nice, and I love it, and I can go to bed and can't wait to wake up, you know, at 4:30 next morning. I don't do this every day, but now in the summer when kids are not in school and it's a bit hard to work during the day, you know, I wake up super early to get some productive hours in, and I can't wait to wake up at 4:30. Like, what a maniac, you know? Yeah. So but it's all because of the love for the work. So I think there is something to it. So yeah, I don't know what you can do with this answer, but there it is.
Yeah, incredible. That's so cool. Sorry, Karen?
Yeah, and I am wondering, you know, you mentioned before that, you know, even in those times when there wasn't much growth, whether it be, you know, the audience or financially, was there any times that you sort of doubted?
Can I pitch in? Can I pitch in with one thing which just came to mind, actually? Because during that 4-year period, when I tried to figure out my path, my online business, my solopreneurship type of thing, none of the people around me actually did something similar. So I was very much a lone wolf who tried to figure this out. And I think a lot of people can find a lot of loneliness in that. And maybe there was, and I really discovered a lot of even more motivation when I tapped into some online communities, you know, and found friends online who were on a similar path. That was extremely motivating and helpful to find those people. But before that, when I still was a lone wolf and I didn't even know how to find these people online and how to connect with them, etc., what really helped me was like podcasts, you know, like this, audiobooks and stuff, where people are ahead of you, you know, living the life you want. And you can grab so much tremendous motivation from that just by hearing and listening to those stories. It was like I had dozens of these indirect mentors that I never talked to, but they were in my ears, kind of motivating me and keeping me going, etc. And I think that's like a useful thing, which I see some people have found useful that I have shared like throughout these years. But yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. Please
How beautiful is that? And, for you to obviously be giving this back now to, fellow artists or solopreneurs who are, a little bit behind you on their journey as well. I think that's absolutely beautiful. Are there any other strategies or pieces of advice or anything like that that helped you cope with that, being a lone wolf and having to figure everything out yourself?
No, of course, like helpful spouse really is a good thing that you can sit and explain, and she will talk to you, and one thing which actually was like a big thing for me to unlock my content, is like when I became a parent, I started to read a lot of these parenting books, and like a common theme you hear there is acknowledge people's feelings, acknowledge kids' feelings in order for them to listen to you. And like I tried to my kids, I'm like, wow, this works, I'm like trying to give advice and nobody's listening to me. And, oh, you didn't like that thing fell over or whatever. Yes, I didn't. And then you can start the conversation. And I realized it's kind of the same with the adults as well, So I was struggling creator for like 4 years, and then I started to acknowledge these feelings through my visuals online, and that really took off, and people really enjoy that. And yeah, I'm still saying all of this, it's a similar conversation I can have with my wife, express my feelings, and she's like, you got this, I believe in you, etc. And that's of course really useful as well. Yeah, what else? I'm thinking of more strategies, but yeah, like tapping into like online communities, that's super helpful. I know a thing that I have started to learn more now is I've always been this, gut type of person, going with my gut, etc. And now when you are more relied on this business stuff, I realize like I need to apply more information. I can't ride with my gut feeling, etc. Now I see like whatever, for some reason the course is not performing or something, instead of just tweaking something and being random about it, you start a bit more strategically, analyze data, okay, who is the best best salesman in the world, you download like the book from Alex Hormozy on his like stuff, how to create these massive offers, and you listen to him and you try to implement stuff, so you start to be a bit more strategic about it. But yeah, that's more like on the business side of things.
So interesting, because I think, intuitively most people probably start out, running their business perhaps based on their gut feelings or what they want to do. I'm speaking for myself here too. And then at some stage realizing it has to be more data driven. And most certainly we've had conversations on this podcast before that have reflected that as well. What do you think, Karen?
Yeah, and I was going to dive into that a little bit. I was going to say, if we were to go back and have a look at the timeline of all the visuals that you've posted, Janis, what would you say influences them? Like, where would the journey take us? Where did the inspiration come from early on to where does it go now? And if it's going to business strategy, and you don't want to reveal too much, we understand as well. No.
I'm very much like that as well. I was riding gut feeling as well for a very long time, and it worked. And I think there is a lot of place for it. I think if you go too businessy and too like what is a profitable niche, etc., too early, you can just build another prison for yourself. But I've been very blessed, to build a business where I feel I'm really happy 80% of the time, but just those months, maybe when the revenue is really down, you just understand, this is a problem and how I can fix this problem. And that's when you approach just more strategically. Okay, what is the problem here? This is the problem. Okay, who can help me solve this problem? That's just how you approach it, instead of winging it and throwing darts at the wall, But I think you very much need to do it early on. And I don't think that much kind of will change, I have kind of my North Star where I'm going and where I want to go, and then I don't know, it's just more about optimizing some things and then still trying to reach right people, not like too many people or whatever. Yeah. Not much changes. Just a little bit smarter in terms of data and stuff like that.
And I just had one question that has really struck my curiosity here, based on the fact that you've said that you've done a lot of reading to help inform what you might use as a visual. And this is a side question because we didn't ask you this pre-show, but what are maybe one or two books that you might be able to share with our audience that you found incredibly inspiring for some of your work?
Books especially inspiring. I don't know if there is a particular book that is extremely inspiring for my work. I would say honestly, those kids books, which led me to that acknowledge kids' feelings, where I thought about, because previously, usually when people, let's say, look for ideas or whatever, they listen to podcasts, they read books, and they look for these nuggets, these actionable advice type of things, do whatever. Here's the 3.3 principle that I use every morning or whatever, all these things. But reading these kids' books and thinking about these feelings, etc., that really influenced a lot my content, that I started, as I said, to acknowledge these creator feelings through creating, just reflecting on my own stuff, how I felt, all these random things we do, a lot of business, these indie hackers, buy tons of domains, and don't use them or whatever. You can just illustrate them and everybody's like, oh man, Janis gets me, yes, that's exactly how it is. So a lot of that content was really influenced by that particular aspect when I was reading kids' books. So it's kind of interesting how unrelated in a sense that is, but how you can bring it into your business and content creation journey. So that was something. But in general, what kicked off everything was the 4-Hour Workweek book by Tim Ferriss, because previously I didn't read books at all. I just thought whatever, that was, I don't know, you probably have seen this visual from Tim Urban about like the growth mountain or something like that. I don't know if you have, but he has this beautiful illustration where basically he just illustrates, when you are a kid, whatever, then you get extremely cocky, in your teenage years or early 20s, like, oh, I understand stuff, those older people just dumb and whatever, I understand everything, etc. And I remember when I listened to the 4-Hour Workweek book by Tim Ferriss, because the title is so compelling, the 4-Hour Workweek, oh my God, what is in there? I was very curious. So I was listening to the book, and I still remember I was pacing in my bedroom around 2 hours in the book, and I said to myself, like, holy shit, Janis, you've been such an idiot. And I really felt like I was dropping from this child's mountain to the very bottom, and understood, oh my God, there is so much to learn. There is so much to learn. And that's kind of when my growth journey, I think, really began. So that was a very influential book as well.
How funny is that? And I bet, most of our listeners have probably read the 4-Hour Workweek and sort of understand maybe the process you've been going through and perhaps felt a little bit similar. But what I love about what you just shared then, that those kids' books have been so influential to you, is that this show, what we talk about a lot is, the feelings of loneliness, the feelings of self-doubt, the feelings of not being good enough and so forth. And most people who, or perhaps all people, I'm not sure, who start out on this journey of solopreneurship, entrepreneurship, whatever, they probably have what it takes, but where they fall over is when they start doubting themselves, and then when they let their emotions get the better of them. And for me, what it sounds like is, you just need to understand exactly how you're feeling. You need to, look a little bit deeper, because you have all the capabilities and skills and intelligence in the world to then deal with it, as long as we acknowledge it and we look at it and we accept it for what it is. So it's just a means of self-regulating, because we're probably smart enough to figure things out as soon as we know exactly what's going on for us.
Yeah, it's actually, you mentioned words from one of my favorite quotes of all time, which I think used the most kind of in my journey, and it's from like a personal development coach, Brendan Burchard, and one of his lines is, believe in your abilities to figure things out. And what I love about that quote is that it's not like, this affirmation type of stuff, you go to the mirror and you say, I'm rich, but in your bank account, there's like zero and you're dead poor. But the phrase ability, I believe in my abilities to figure things out, and then when I reflect in my path, and there was a point I remember when I was starting to learn to drive a car and everything felt so scary. I'm like, oh my God, I will never learn to drive this vehicle thing, And now, of course, look at me, I drive and like, not recommended, but eat cheeseburger and ride with one hand and everything's so good, and you feel so confident doing that. So you can look really at your past and get some confidence and evidence from your own actions. There's plenty of things that you felt like you don't know how to do, but you figured it out. And I think it's just a very important quote and like a thing you can reflect on.
Mm-hmm. What a beautiful way of describing the whole concept of self-efficacy.
Yeah, most undoubtedly here. And I was just about to say, Janis, one of the things that you do so great is break down very complex things into relatively easy ways for people to understand. And you can evidently not just do it visually, you can do it verbally as well. I think that analogy with the driving was absolutely perfect there. You
have no idea. You have no idea how big of a compliment that is. Like, I struggle with public speaking and writing. It's a thing I'm trying to figure out. So, just means so much.
You're most welcome. And, that is one of the complexities that Micah and I face. We often trying to break down complex terms or topics and make them really easy for what we'd say the lay person to understand. But I think you did a great job. So throwing the compliment right back at you there. I think you've done very well. But what I'd love to know, just reflecting on your journey, has there maybe been 2 or 3 key lessons that you've learned along the way? Because for a lot of our listeners, they're probably sitting there going, "Oh, I'm in the 9 to 5, but I've got an idea." What are maybe a couple of lessons that you learnt along the way that have influenced your leadership or your approach to sort of managing your own business?
Yeah, I think one very important lesson, which took a couple of years to learn, was, we are very much influenced by our surroundings, when we see these people on social media and everybody's running these successful businesses and you see these awesome YouTubers and you're like, oh man, I want to be that. And I was in like a lot of those experiments which I run. There was similar, there's a YouTuber who actually lives in Australia, Matt Diavella. I don't know if you have heard of him, but like his thing is whatever, a little bit of self-help type of stuff as well. And he like sprinkles in some jokes here and there, but extremely high like video production. That was his thing. And I really enjoyed it. And I like, okay, I want to be that guy, and I started pretty much doing very much the same things. And I understood I was like not playing with my strengths. I'm from Latvia. I was like way more struggling like with public speaking or whatever. I listened to how I speak on videos. I was just like cringing like hell. It was like, what is going on? I can't publish this. This is horrible. Mm-hmm. And same, like then I tried to write these blogs and writing came again so hard for me because like in school I was always, this guy who tries to lurk and cheats here and there not to do these boring assignments or whatever. So I didn't really learn how to write well as well, and it's still a struggle, and it's kind of funny because I have a book deal and I'm working on my first book, and I'm using it as a constraint but it will be very visual book as well, so but still I like a lot of writing, so I'm using that almost like a constraint to learn writing and become better at it because it's a goal of mine. But I'm saying all of this because like when I discovered these visuals, a lot of things clicked. As I said, I was like a lazy reader. I loved consume like short form stuff or whatever. And I think a lot of people can relate, they love in companies go to the whiteboards and like draw this and that and play with like crayons and then draw these charts or whatever. This brainstorming process, it's extremely exciting and interesting for most people. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the visuals you see I create online, like 80% of the work is that process, that fun brainstorming process. Sitting down and designing it is actually the easy part. Of course, when you start, like first couple of visuals a bit harder, but when you get going, understand the principles, it's very easy. So it was a very much like type of content creation that aligned with my strengths and kind of eliminated my weaknesses. And I think a lot of people should probably look and play more with their strengths. Of course, develop your weaknesses, like now I'm doing with my writing or whatever other things I try to do, like businessy type of things and looking at data, which I find extremely boring, but start and play with your strengths, and maybe if you build a company and you have team, don't invite other people who are the same as you, but try to complement each other, because I think we have naturally some abilities where we are better than others. And we shouldn't just look at somebody, hey, I want to be that guy, but like all those skill sets which to be that guy. Like you don't have them basically, you know, and you have these other skill sets and you are ignoring them just because you see this fancy thing and you want to be that. So I think that's one important lesson that I have learned.
And I feel like you're just throwing us these gold nuggets because they align so well with what we know from positive psychology research. And I can't wait to unpack this a little bit further with Karen after our interview with you. So that's perfect. Janis, any other lessons that you would give others who are starting out or even your younger self as you're looking back?
Yeah, I think especially if you go into this like content creation, online business type of thing, it's not that hard, you know, to start it on the side. I'm definitely more the person who will advise, hey, have a job, you know, take care of the basic needs. Don't, like, especially early on, don't make your creativity kind of pay the bills, you know, have a 9-to-5 job, carve out a couple of hours every day and try to figure out what you love, and what you find very intrinsically motivating. I think that would be one thing. I had another one, but my mind just went blank.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, you know, to work with what you find intrinsically motivating. I think that's a beautiful one. And it's similar to, you know, playing to your strengths, maybe digging into your passions and your interests and your talents, which all of, you know, that I love to hear, because self-leadership or motivation, whatever you want to look at, it all starts with understanding yourself, you know, having a really good look in the mirror and going, okay, who am I? What are my values? What are my strengths? What are my interests, my passions, and so forth? If you can dig into that, that'll be a beautiful foundation for then, you know, to brainstorm probably some business ideas around that as well.
For sure. I think I got what I wanted to mention as well. Is the thing I often like to remind myself, you know, what's the alternative? Because, like, if you are in a job you really dislike or whatever, you know, what is the alternative? You tried this business on the side, it failed, it didn't work, you didn't like it or whatever. Well, what's the alternative? You give up and you go to the job you dislike, or you continue and you try to figure out, because, like, very rarely people get this from the first time around, you know, just keep going. And as well, you know, in terms of learning, find ways how you can, what's intrinsically motivating to you in terms of learning. For example, reading books, extremely hard for me. I can't do it. When I discovered audiobooks, I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. I can go for a walk. I can drive in my car. I can listen to this amazing knowledge. I can wash dishes, listen to this amazing knowledge. So there's a lot of ways, you know, same with fitness and pretty much with anything. You can find ways how to make it more fun, more interesting for you. So it's more likely that you will kind of do it. Yeah, I'm like, what's the alternative? Give up and go to the job you don't like. That's not cool.
So many people don't think about that, you know. So I love that. And, you know, what you're saying before, the whole idea of what are you actually happy struggling with? I think so many people assume that, or, you know, everyone, myself included, assume that often that, you know, when you do something you love, it should feel easy, but it's not so much about that. It's more about pick something that you're happy struggling with, you know, and it sounds a little bit like, you know, at least part of your business is that too. And I certainly can say that it's like that for myself. There are so many things you constantly have to adapt and, you know, relearn and learn and so forth. But I love these struggles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on, and I think it's an important addition to what I said, because I'm usually like super positive, find what you love, etc., and I might give the feeling that everything is this super rosy thing, but of course it's not. The struggle is real, you know. There are struggles, but as you said, like I'm happily dealing with them, you know. And when I look back at the struggles I had in corporate world and 9-to-5, not willing to trade these struggles by any means. Yeah. So yeah, I think Mark Manson actually have a lot of blog posts and he have written a lot about this, like find the struggles you just want to have, because you can't really avoid them. So I think that's spot on.
And maybe on that, I know you've worked with some incredible people already. You just mentioned Mark Manson now. Is there anyone in particular who you would love to create art for?
I don't think so. In general, I appreciate very much when I see like, wow, this super impressive person just popped into my DMs and want him to illustrate his book. That's very, very nice, and I'm extremely grateful for that. But it's not like I seek to do freelance. That's actually something like I do to have some income aside of my course. But in general, I don't really want to do a lot of freelance in future. I want to just more explore my curiosity, and through my creativity, create these illustrations. Would love to get better with books, create more books in future, hopefully. That's kind of where I'm at. So I don't have a dream person to work with, I think.
Just wanted to explore. And then obviously you did mention your book already, and I had no idea you had a book deal on the table and so forth. Can you even tell us a little bit more about that already?
It's still in the works, and if it will come out, it will probably come out in 2026. So it's some while away. Maybe we can do a round 2, after some year, and then I can tell me more about it, because I know how it is with me and the projects. Like, I go in with this, like, this is gonna happen, and here's how it's gonna happen, and a couple of months later I get my hands dirty, and the project comes out absolutely different. So it's just too much unknowns. But it will be in general about creativity, finding work you love, stuff like that. More like awesome. My journey and stuff I learned, and a lot of the content that you see already online. That's like kind of the core theme.
I love that.
Beautiful.
Cool. So excited for it.
Yeah, I was about to say we're definitely excited to see that launch, and yes, we can potentially do a second round where we can hear even some of the struggles of writing the book, because I'm sure, as you mentioned, it's probably peaks and troughs, and it's nice to be able to understand a little bit around what happens when writing a book and the challenges that are there. Janis, this has been a really amazing conversation for everything from the start. I mean, I sort of come in with a little bit of awe, because I really love your work and I find it so inspiring for myself personally. But so much of what you've said today really resonates deeply with me around, even from the simplest things around habit stacking, listening to books while, we do maybe mundane tasks, or whether it be, understanding our strengths or surrounding ourselves with the right people. There's been so many little gems that you've hidden and thrown in the mix here today, which I'm sure our listeners will really love, and some things that have probably affirmed it for me a little bit of my approach and how I go about running my business, but also just like on the day-to-day things that I do, and where can I source inspiration. Perhaps it's just in a children's book. It's nice to bring things back to a simple sort of space. So thank you so much for the conversation. I feel as though many of our listeners are now going to be curious to go, ooh, if I haven't come across Janis's work, where can I see and learn a little bit more? And they've mentioned this course a couple of times.
Take his course.
Yeah, where do people go to find out more about you, or even learn about and engage in your course?
I think just you can go to my website, which is my surname and name.com, but you can go to ozo.blog, which is just a short link, and it will take you there. And there's some posts from me, my socials, and everything else, and you can reach out to me, and I'll hit reply, etc. And that's where I live. I live online. You can find me.
Amazing. And obviously we'll make sure we link to your blog and your Instagram and what have you in the show notes as well, so people can definitely find you very easily. Janis, it's been such an honor having you on the show, and it's been so nice talking to you. Obviously, your artwork isn't just amazing, but you're also a really lovely human. So that's always a super nice surprise, on top of everything else. I wish you all the best with your book and all your other endeavors. I cannot wait for part 2, that's for sure. Enjoy your time in Spain with your family as well. And all the best to you.
Thank you so much.
Alrighty, Michael, I feel as though I need to just take a little moment, because I am fanboying really hard at the moment. That was such a fun episode with Janis. We've spoken about Janis's work many a times. We absolutely love the creative nature of his work, but I was really surprised to learn so much more about how he got there, the story behind it all. and some clever little tips and tricks that he had along the way. I don't know, what were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, you know what I loved about our chat with Janis so much too is that we're both such fans of his work, and we're both familiar with his work because he's got, you know, a pretty good social media following already. But also, all of this, you know, his business has only taken off very recently, obviously very well. You know, he has a young family he looks after, but it's so recent for him, and I think that's so inspiring. It's like, oh, you never know, you know, you could be on the cusp of something. Do you know what I mean?
That's a brilliant reminder, actually. Yeah, you just need to be mindful that little break, it may be just around the corner. That's a really important point to mention too. And yeah, like, I think one of the other reasons why we both love his work so much is he does what we try and do in our work all the time. We try and take pretty complex knowledge and understanding of the field of positive psychology and break it down into like really easy digestible formats, which Janis does in visuals, which I'm so in awe of, but does it so well. There was quite a few things that I got from that conversation that I really loved, and you know, one of the big ones for me was this notion of like, just, you know, one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. And it's interesting that was sort of woven into the conversation, because Janis mentioned that he's a big fan of James Clear. And there's a great quote by James Clear that I talk about all the time in my workshops, and it's an extension of John Hayward's quote, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. We all know that, and we've heard of that, and we go, yeah, cool, right, Rome, big, beautiful city. Of course it took time. And I think we can get lost in the, oh yeah, but I could never achieve that. Rome's just amazing. But the extension of that quote that James Clear talks about is, Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour. And I think that's the important work that we need to come back to. Let's have have our head in the clouds, thinking about the big picture that we're trying to create, but let's bring it back down to the steps, the individual, tangible steps that we're going to take tomorrow, next week, 3 months from now, that are going to lead towards that beautiful city being built.
Oh, absolutely. Isn't there this saying, like, we tend to overestimate how much we can achieve in a day, but underestimate what we can achieve in a year, or something like that? I don't even know who it's by. But it just reminds me of that, because, you know, you said in the beginning, oh, you know, I could never achieve something big like that. No, we can. And in fact, didn't Janis say throughout our chat something to the extent of believe in your abilities to figure things out? Yep. We can figure it out. But break it down into those small steps and check in with yourself what you're actually doing day in and day out, right? Yeah. Find ways to make it more palatable as well, which actually leads into the other part that I really took away from this. And I'm a big believer in this, you know, the notion of habit stacking, you know, finding... And sometimes we've got to get a little bit creative with this, but I mean, and there's some, if people are not sort of familiar with habit stacking, you know, it's like the notion that we apply two areas together, maybe one that we don't necessarily love or one that we do love together, to help encourage and formulate new habits as well. And I do this in just about every aspect of my life when I've got, you know, I know in like a workplace that I'm a part of, you know, we call it spinach work. It's like sometimes you got stuff that you don't want to do, but it's it's important to do. You got to get it done. Oh, poor spinach.
I know. It aligns so close with me because I'm not a big fan of spinach, but you know, I eat it because it's,
shame on you.
I know it's a necessity, right? But you know, habit stacking can be so beneficial in helping me sort of navigate some of these tasks as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I thought that was
always a fan.
Yeah, I thought that was a really great tool for our listeners to sort of hear and just go, oh yeah, of course there's like not everything about leadership or starting a business is glitz and glamour. There are going to be some things that we just have to do. But if we can find a way to, you know, habit stack where possible to get through some of those tasks, make them a little bit less mundane, or add a little bit of excitement to them, that can be really beneficial.
Yeah, or at least even just, find the path of least resistance, because habit stacking, that's what it reminds me of. It's just making use of already existing neural pathways. And it literally is, our habits are like pathways. Imagine them in a field. You've gone this, path many times, therefore, all the grass is nice and, trampled down or whatever. And so it's easier to walk this path already. And it's the same with the neural pathways in our brain when it comes to our habits. So it's just incredibly smart to make use of that. If you want to foster a new habit, stack it onto an already existing habit. And it's exactly what you said, Karen, that if it's a habit that you have that you actually quite like doing, to then find a way of maybe making the other new habit a little bit more attractive, even better.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Classic
love that
example
too.
for
Great.
me is
love
exercise, love running. Don't always love listening to university lectures, but I can combine the two and makes it a little bit more enjoyable. So
yeah, very good. I know, I love that. See, I'm not such a massive fan of gym work or whatever, but listening to music or listening to a great podcast is what makes it sweeter for me. So it's almost like the other way around. Something I also wanted to get back to, because I loved it when Janis mentioned that, is the whole idea of something that in psychology we refer to as loss aversion. So the psychology of being motivated by the anticipation of loss. Because didn't he mention that, he's a procrastinator. And by the way, I love that he's so honest and open about that. He has self-doubt, he procrastinates, a couple of other things he mentioned. But he said, he made this pact with his friend saying, listen, this is my plan. And if I don't do, create a visual every day for the next 3 weeks or something like that, I will have to send you,
it's like
I can't
a
remember
euro.
what he said, like $1 or a euro.
Yeah.
A euro. Doesn't have to be much. And, we used to, do a similar thing with like Prosecco or something like that. Anyway, sending your friends Prosecco. It's like, yay, that's cool. Anyway, so it is so smart, because it really is like that. We often are more motivated by the anticipation of loss, and so it's on one side that's really annoying, but we can just use that insight to our advantage, you know. So I just think, it's a great little insight.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does make me think about, like I've been involved in like fitness challenges and things like that previously. And I feel as though that maybe that was like the missing link, because sometimes, that might be driven by, being able to run a certain distance or, losing X amount of like your percentage of body weight or something like that. And not to harp on about exercise, but there were peaks and troughs of where I went through where I was more motivated than other times. And I do wonder if I had a little incentive system like that, because often when I was doing it with friends, that might have been a huge motivator to help drive me through some of that. So yeah, I think that's, and it's also like the level of accountability too, right? That does, help keep us on track with our goals too. So there's a lot to be said about that. And it was interesting because I think he then turned around and said for a short period of time, they paid each other they like flipped it, although we didn't quite investigate as to why that didn't last. But
exactly, that's so true. He said at some stage they flipped it because they were like, okay, what's a euro or even 100 euros, hurting or harming yourself through your procrastination. If you really want to procrastinate, I'm sure you'd be able to pay a price for it, but flipping it and putting that burden onto your friend, because that you really don't want to do, right?
That's right.
So if I don't perform and achieve my goal this week, I will have to tell my friend, and my friend will have to pay me the euro or 100 euros or whatever.
Yeah.
Very, very clever. I love that. Just shows what a creative mind he has.
Oh, absolutely. And to his credit too, I think that, when we sort of tapped into where some of his creativity comes from, he was quite open about the fact that, he didn't see himself as like a great reader, but he's still engaged in it because that's where he sourced a lot of his inspiration from. And, I know some people that are very well read. They enjoy, like they read for enjoyment, but they read for learning. And I tell you what, I have some of the most insightful conversations with them, because I would say I'm a little bit like Janis maybe was originally. I don't love reading. I read to learn. I don't do it a lot for enjoyment, but you know, you can see that he has absorbed a lot of knowledge and inspiration from being well versed in what's out there. So yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Huge credit to him.
Yeah, you look at his visual art, and you'd probably assume he's a psychologist by trade.
Yep.
Or perhaps a positive psychologist or positive psychology practitioner. Absolutely. Hey, and speaking of which, there was one other aspect that I just remembered. You know, he said something like, you know, play with your strengths. He spoke a lot about strengths, you know, really tap into your strengths and also complement your weaknesses. And it just, in my mind, I tried to, I guess, say something about something clever in that moment, and it wouldn't come to me. Story of my life. But, you know, because instantly I get these thoughts about, there's this debate, right? Especially in positive psychology, because we like to work strength-based, and there's so much research to show that it's always a great idea to understand your strength and use your strength to accomplish your goals. So big fan of that. But what I find interesting, I would love to get your take or insight on this or opinion on this, is that there's a bit of a debate where some people argue, sure, we should understand our strengths, but shouldn't we also be aware of our weaknesses so we can manage them? In fact, these people might argue that there's a lot more to gain for us if we really understand our weaknesses and manage them. Because if you think about your strengths as, all right, in this aspect, I'm already an 8 or a 9 on a 10-point scale, you know, really proportionately, like, what is the proportionate gain you can get by sharpening that axe you already have that's already quite sharp, right?
Yep.
Whereas if you, one of your weaknesses and you sit on a 2 or a 3 on a 10-point scale, surely, you know, if you use your intelligence to manage that weakness or perhaps learn a bit to combat it and stuff like that, surely you can get it up to a 5 or a 6 or something like that. So arguing that proportionately, you could gain a lot more by actually focusing more on your weaknesses. Have you ever heard of that debate?
Absolutely, yeah. And those people that have been part of my coaching sessions and my workshops know that I don't use the word weaknesses very intentionally. And I refer to them, and you'll never see me do a SWOT analysis, because obviously strengths and then weaknesses. For this reason, I like to change that word weaknesses and replace it with areas for growth or areas for development. For this exact reason.
You're such a teacher.
Through and through. And, you know, I do see every opportunity where we learn more about ourselves as a chance for us to develop ourselves further, be a better version of ourselves. So I do like identifying areas for growth and development. And then, you know, this is a big part of my coaching is often talking about you know, we've got a great sense of humor, or we're very charismatic, or we like public speaking. These are all amazing things. How can we, you know, utilize that knowledge and, you know, that insights that we have in that area to be more empathetic, to be more relatable, and it just promotes some amazing questions. And people, I think, you know, when we look at it in that lens, people go on this amazing journey of like self-discovery. Oh, I am a great person and I have a lot to offer. And if I actually increase my awareness or my self-awareness or my regulation from like a 2 to a 5, how much of a better leader can I be? How much better can I serve the people that are in my stead? Yeah, so I could talk for days and days about this.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I have no doubt about that. And I love, you know, I find it a little bit like nuancy, nerdy, overcorrect, politically, whatever, you know, that whole idea of swapping weaknesses with areas of growth. I do like it too. And I find it interesting because at the end of the day, every strength can be a weakness if it's not managed very well, right? I know that in Clifton Gallup, I always forget what they're called these days, their Strength Finder tools, they talk about balconies and basements of strengths. And they very openly talk about this and teach you about the fact that, you know, if you, for example, if your strength is an achiever, being an achiever, which is one of the the profiles you can score on in their strength profiling tool, that's great. You're an achiever, so you might be super productive, might be very driven, think type A personality, and I reckon that's why they called it achiever for the A. But anyway, so you get things done, often quickly, efficiently, and so forth. But on the downside, as many high achievers might be able to relate to, is that can lead to workaholism, burnout, your inability to actually relax and just enjoy the moment, going with the flow, those types of things. So any strength can be a weakness if it's not managed well. We don't actually want to always just turn the volume up. So the whole idea of, using your strength from the balcony, where you use your strength effectively and positively, whereas, using it while sort of being in the basement of it, where you overuse it or misapply it, and then that obviously leading to undesirable outcomes. So just found it really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a notion of we need to make sure that we nurture these strengths as well. And, someone who's experienced many injuries over the year related to sports, it does make me think a little bit about, all right, well, I've got a bit of an aging body now. I can't overuse my muscles. I need to nurture them, right? And I think the same can be said around our strengths as well. We don't want to overutilize. We want to use them to help support and nurture and support those areas for growth. So much to be said about how this amazing conversation from a visual artist that's given us all these great insights. This was a super fun conversation, and I mean, as they always are, but this one just gave me a few different perspectives, which I really like to just think about and revisit in my own life. But this is far from the end. We've got plenty more excitement to come.
I know, and I just wanted to say, do you want to give our listeners a little teaser of who is up next?
Yeah, I'm very happy for us to give a little bit more of a tease. I don't know, do you want to do how much you're willing to give away here? I'll let you take the reins here.
Well, okay, great. Just hand it over. Palm it off to me, Karen. Well, I'm a big fan of this person who's on next week. She's amazing. So she's a woman. She's very big in leadership. She has her own leadership consultancy. She's also a researcher in the fields of psychology and leadership, and the intersection of the two. She's Australia-based. With an immigrant background. What else can we give away? She's amazing. She's very smart. Love her LinkedIn posts. She gets such a good reaction and engagement to her posts as well, which I think always says a lot. Anything else we can give away without giving away? I think
that's pretty good. Yeah, she's a real thought provoker. I would say her LinkedIn posts definitely get you thinking quite critically about leadership and psychology.
Yeah. And she's very strong on working evidence-based.
Yes, super important.
I think that's one of the main things I really appreciate about her.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, she'll be an amazing episode for sure. So make sure you tune in again next time. Thank you for listening, and see you next week. Thank you for listening to today's show. We hope our conversation helped normalize the struggles so many of us face on the path to success. While on the outside things often look like sunshine and rainbows, this is rarely the experience for anyone behind the facade.
But instead of letting that demotivate you, we hope it does the exact opposite, to let it fuel you to keep pursuing your purpose and realize your potential. Just without the added burden of feeling inadequate, and a little more patience, some tips, and self-compassion instead. For further info, head to our website, flourishingunfiltered.com, and get in touch with us via our socials, @flourishingunfiltered.
Now, if you or someone you know is struggling with feelings of loneliness, low mental health, or suicidal thoughts, please know that there are people who care and treatments that can help. We've compiled some helplines for you in the show notes.
It's a wrap for Flourishing Unfiltered today. Please give us a follow and leave us a comment and a review. We hope you tune in next time.